There isn't any evidence to suggest that watching TV or videos online helps language development, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that interacting with somebody live helps children to develop language. So even if children get the same information, if somebody's talking to them and saying the exact same thing on a TV screen versus in person in a live conversation, research shows us that children learn from the live conversation, but they do not learn from the TV display. In general, parents should monitor their children's learning and progress. And if a child shows risk for reading disability, then it is true that having extra phonics instruction to close learning gaps can benefit that child. So as parents today, we're inundated with advertisements and reminders of all the things we could be doing or classes we could be signing our children up for to help to build up intelligence and brain function. There is no evidence to suggest these classes are necessary or even beneficial to young children. What we do know is that children who are in high-quality, conversationally rich environments end up building up brain structures to a greater degree that help them with later language development. So the best thing that parents can do is to resist this kind of advertising and to create a positive learning environment within the home and within the child's natural environment. It's good to start children on 2 languages as early as possible. So young children tend to learn languages easier than older children, and certainly adults have a much more difficult time learning a second language. However, what's also important is bilingual motivation. So in many societies, including Singapore, as children get older, they tend to be very focused on English, and they may lose motivation for the mother tongue. So it's very important to instill in young children excitement and a motivation for the mother tongue, and to keep that going as children get older. A language delay is generally the idea that children are slow to pick up language, and this is often marked by children having delayed production of the first word or the first sentence, moving along more slowly with language compared to their same-age peers. There are many different kinds of language delay. Some language delays are caused by other conditions. So children who have autism or who even have a lot of fluid trapped in their ears for several months can have a language delay from ear infections. So these are what we call secondary language delays, where there's another medical condition that is giving rise to slow language development. Primary language delays are very common as well. So 7 to 10% of children don't have any other medical condition, but are just slow to learn to talk. And sometimes these children need speech therapy and language therapy to be able to catch up. So it's very important to think about your child's language development when they're, in particular, when they're 2 years of age, when they're 24 months of age. If the child doesn't have any words by that point, or isn't combining words into sentences, then it's good to have the child evaluated by a speech-language pathologist to see if there's something that can be done to boost the child's language development. It's always good to consult with your pediatrician if you see things like social disengagement, where a child isn't making eye contact with you or isn't engaging with you about a common object. It's always good to think about whether your child is responding to you when you call their name, because they may have, for example, fluid trapped in their ears that prevents them from hearing things. So it's always good to monitor your child's development holistically and think about language as it fits into other areas of the child's development. Speech disorders are disorders that affect production and processing of sound, of individual sounds within words. A language disorder is difficulty learning words and learning sentences and understanding words and sentences. So speech is very slow to develop in young children, and children show a variety of speech errors that are common across the first few years of life. Knowledge of sounds continues to develop until a child is 7 years of age, so it's a long game for young children. If a child shows atypical errors with speech, so if they show substitutions that are not typical, then this can be a sign of a speech disorder. So it's very important if you see speech errors, particularly those that persist, to have the child evaluated for potential disorder. A language disorder is difficulty with words and with sentences, and that's most often detected when children don't have many words in their vocabulary, or they're combining words in a haphazard and sort of illogical way that doesn't conform to the grammar of their language. So if a child is making developmentally inappropriate errors in how they use language, so having difficulty finding words when they're trying to speak, even though these words are very common, or stringing words together in ways that don't make sense, then that can be a sign of difficulty with language. So again, just as with speech, there are errors that children make that are typical. So many children say things like, yesterday I eated my dinner. That's a very typical error. They've taken a past tense form and they've just over-applied it. There are other errors that children make that are not as typical. So if you suspect that your child has difficulty with language and they don't sound like their peers, perhaps this is flagged by a teacher or by a daycare provider, then it's always good to have the child evaluated. It's always the case that early intervention for speech and language is the most beneficial thing for the child in being able to catch up. In general, parents should monitor their child's cognitive development, how their child is thinking about things and problem solving, their child's language development, what their child is saying and understanding, and their child's social development. So how inclined or tuned in is their child into their social environment. So all of these three areas of development are important and they're all related. So if a child is socially disengaged, it's very difficult for them to learn language. If a child has cognitive limitations, language becomes more difficult. So it's very important to think about, for example, around your child's first birthday. Do they show signs of understanding language or understanding simple words? Are they beginning to produce simple words, even if those words aren't perfectly well articulated? Do they understand their own name or the name for their mother or father or caregiver? Around their second birthday, are they beginning to combine words into short sentences, so just two-word sentences? And around their third birthday, are they showing more complex combinations where they combine 3 words in a simple sentence? So if you have concerns, it's very good to go as early as you have those concerns to your healthcare professional, so to your primary care physician or pediatrician, and if necessary, to request a referral to a specialist to evaluate the child for any underlying conditions.